November light spilled through the tall windows, bathing the half-finished murals in golden hues. Celeste Monroe's loft, a sanctuary of color and calm, felt almost sacred under the soft autumn glow. She was a muralist, known not just for her art, but for the kindness etched into every brushstroke and every quiet smile. From the tiny kitchen came the rich scent of coffee. Julian Reyes, her husband and a green tech entrepreneur focused on urban renewal, stood measuring espresso like he was conducting a daily ritual. He never rushed his coffee. All good things take time, he often said, more philosophy than habit. They had been married for 3 years. Theirs was not a loud kind of love, not a marriage of headlines or spotlight. It was quiet, constant, like moss on an old brick wall, slow, growing, deeply rooted, and warm. Together they dreamed, a sustainable art space for underprivileged children, a daughter who would grow up surrounded by color and possibility. For 8 months, each test came back the same, a single line. Still, Celeste never stopped believing. Maybe next month, she whispered to herself, curled in Julian's arms each night. This morning, like so many before it, Celeste stood by the window with a mug of warm tea, eyes tracing the stream of people hurrying down the street below. She didn't know, she couldn't know, that everything she loved, everything she believed was safe, was quietly counting down its final days. Talia Brennan entered like a December wind, cold, sharp, and deliberate. She had just returned from a residency in Barcelona, where her visual art series on feminist identity had earned critical acclaim. As Celeste's closest friend since college, Talia had always been the sophisticated one, fiercely independent, slightly enigmatic. But there was one truth Celeste had never known. Talia had been in love with Julian since their senior year. That feeling never left. It just learned how to hide. Celeste rushed to hug her, eyes shining like a child's at Christmas. "I missed you so much," she beamed, pulling Talia into the newly finished room dedicated to her school wall project, a series of murals for underserved kids. Talia nodded, offered compliments, but her gaze lingered on the mural designs Julian had helped coordinate. His fingerprint was everywhere. In the sketches, the structure, even the lighting. He was in the walls. He was in her. Julian emerged from the back studio, smiling warmly, holding 2 glasses of organic wine. "Talia, welcome home." He was the same, calm, elegant, impossibly kind, but the way he looked at Celeste made something tighten in Talia's chest. "You should bring your next exhibit here," he offered. "We'll host it at our gallery." "I'll think about it," Talia replied softly. She turned just enough to catch his eye, slowly, deliberately, just enough pause to let the moment stretch thin between them, just enough to feel something. She remembered that look. Back in their final year of college, during a seminar on urban art, Julian had once smiled at her after her presentation. She'd carried that smile with her through every lonely exhibition and muted applause. But ever since Celeste, that smile belonged to someone else. At dinner, Celeste spoke gently about their efforts to conceive. A long, uncertain road, still without answers. Julian held her hand the whole time, listening like the world had narrowed to her voice alone. Talia sat silently, fingers tightening around her wine glass. Why her, she thought. She has it all. Respect, success, a man who breathes for her, and now, maybe a child, and me? I'm just watching it all slip further away. She pulled out her phone beneath the table, typing a line into her notes app. When someone else holds the smile you've dreamed of for years, what's left of you? Later, when Celeste stood to grab dessert, Talia leaned in to top off Julian's wine. Her voice dropped just slightly. "Do you remember that Frida Kahlo exhibit in Mexico City? When we went..." Julian smiled politely. "Of course, beautiful trip. I remember every detail." Her hand lightly brushed his glass, holding it for a second too long. Just a look, half a smile. Then she turned away. Julian didn't flinch, didn't lean in, didn't lean out. But Talia noticed something. Celeste hadn't seen it. And that was a crack. Later that night, alone in her pristine, silent condo, Talia opened an old photo album from their university years. There it was, Julian at a library table, lost in his laptop, and Talia a few desks away, staring at him with a hope no one ever noticed. No one, not even him. And now, when everything seemed permanently out of reach, something in her hardened. She was done waiting. If happiness would not open its door for her, she would break the hinges somewhere else. Talia didn't waste time. What had smoldered in her for years now burned too hot to contain. She turned to Damien Frost, a private investigator known in the art world for discretion and results. He asked no questions that didn't matter, and he never flinched at the moral lines he crossed. "What exactly are you looking for?" Damien asked, fingers brushing the edge of his voice recorder like a warning. "Anything that can destroy a marriage," Talia replied, voice steady. "A suspicious meeting, a strange message, something that makes a man stop believing in his wife?" Damien began trailing Celeste. After nearly a month, he found nothing. Celeste painted murals, worked with children, came home, made dinner with Julian. No secrets, no affairs, just the kind of consistency that made Talia's envy burn deeper. So she did what he couldn't. She manufactured the betrayal. She took a photo of Celeste embracing Elias, her cousin, at the opening of an art show 2 weeks ago. It was innocent, lighthearted, even joyful, but with a darker filter, a tighter crop, and a slight blur to the background, it became something else entirely, something more dangerous. She printed the photo and placed it in a plain white envelope with a handwritten note. "You deserved the truth." On Monday morning, Julian received it at his office. He tore it open casually, then froze. The image stared back at him like a wound. Celeste, in someone else's arms, her expression unreadable, intimate, foreign. His breath caught in his chest. His hands trembled. He stared for minutes, turned the photo over, back again. He remembered the night, a gallery opening she said she was attending, with Talia. He wanted to believe. God, he wanted to. But the seed was planted. He didn't call Celeste, didn't ask, didn't confront. He let the silence crawl into his veins, 1 inch of doubt at a time. That evening, Celeste walked into the studio, holding 2 mugs of tea. Her smile faltered the moment she saw Julian, rigid, unmoving, eyes fixed on the table. "What's wrong?" she asked gently. He didn't look at her, just asked, "Who is this?" She approached, lifted the photo, and gasped. "Oh my God, that's Elias, my cousin. This was from 2 weeks ago at the show. Who sent you this?" Julian looked up, eyes red, empty. "That's not the question, Celeste. The question is, why do you look like that with another man?" "Julian, please. You have to believe me. This photo, it's been edited." "Edited?" His voice cracked. "Then why does it feel like my whole chest is breaking open right now? I trusted you with everything, and now you tell me this is just some mix-up? You think I'm a fool?" She stepped forward, desperate. "Julian, look at me. I love you, only you. Please, just look in my eyes." "I have," he whispered, "and I'm not sure I know what I'm seeing anymore." That broke her. She stepped back, the room thickened, air disappeared. "What do you want?" she asked, voice barely a whisper. He stood slowly. "I want a divorce, and I want you out of this house, tonight." Celeste stared, her lips trembled, words bubbled but died in her throat. She didn't cry, she didn't scream. She just turned quietly, like someone who had loved so hard that when it shattered, even her grief was silent. The door closed behind her. Slow, final. Celeste left the loft on a rainy night. No suitcase, no destination. Just a worn canvas tote holding a few clothes, a travel-sized paint kit, and an old paintbrush. The very first birthday gift Julian had ever given her. The city at night was cold and foreign. Places that once felt familiar now made her feel breathless with grief. She didn't call friends, didn't go back to her mother's house. She didn't have the strength to explain a story she herself still couldn't understand. She found a tiny room in a budget motel on the west side, musty air, peeling wallpaper, water-stained ceilings. The walls didn't ask questions. They didn't expect her to smile. 3 weeks later, after days of nausea and dizziness, Celeste bought a pregnancy test from a corner pharmacy near the bus stop. She didn't hope, she didn't dare, but when 2 red lines appeared, she stood frozen in the bathroom, test in hand, tears falling without sound. Part of her wanted to tell Julian, another part couldn't. He didn't believe her, didn't listen. He had walked away long before she had the chance to say anything that mattered. She chose to keep the baby, a remnant of a love she once believed was forever. From that moment, Celeste worked every job she could find, making coffee in the mornings, cleaning galleries at night, painting school murals during the day. No one knew she once had a name people respected in the art world. Meanwhile, Julian wasn't himself after Celeste left. He still went to work, still spoke in meetings, still managed green tech projects, but his eyes were vacant, his voice colder each day. He stopped sleeping well. Meals lost their taste. At night, he sat alone in their old studio, staring at the empty space where Celeste once painted, once sang softly under her breath as her brush danced on the wall. Talia didn't rush in. She waited, watched until he was fragile enough to fall, then she moved. She reappeared as the old friend, brought dinner, stopped by late to talk through project deadlines, invited him on long walks under the guise of helping him clear his mind. And when Julian's eyes began to linger on her for just 1 second longer, she knew. One night, after sharing a few glasses of wine in Julian's apartment, Talia refilled his glass again and again, knowing he wouldn't stop her. He was lost, grieving, exhausted, and barely present. And when he stumbled, she didn't help him back up. She guided him to the place she wanted him to fall. Julian, dazed and exhausted, could barely register the world. Talia didn't stop him. She just let things happen, unbuttoned his shirt like it was the most natural thing. He mumbled someone's name, not hers, but she didn't stop. The next morning, Julian woke with a pounding headache, his shirt half off, the room dim and unfamiliar. Talia sat beside him, wrapped in a blanket, her expression uncertain. "Last night, if you weren't ready, I'm sorry," she whispered. Julian couldn't recall anything clearly, but her eyes, soft, embarrassed, hurt, held a truth he didn't have the strength to question. A week later, Talia stood in front of him, holding a pregnancy test, voice trembling just enough. "I didn't plan for this, Julian, but it's real." And Julian nodded, not out of love, because some men were raised to carry the weight of their mistakes. And Celeste, standing behind a coffee bar in the middle of downtown Chicago, her belly quietly growing, said nothing. No one knew who the father was. She kept her head down and worked and breathed, like a flower blooming silently in winter, unseen by anyone. Celeste never imagined she would see Julian again like this, not on a quiet street, not at an art exhibit like the old days, but holding a tray of champagne flutes at a rooftop event she didn't even know he was attending. She had taken the catering job through a temp app, a high-end hotel rooftop, high pay. She needed the money, prenatal bills, rent, food, for her and the child growing steadily inside her. 7 months now. Her body ached, her eyes carried exhaustion, but she worked. Silently, invisibly. She wore a black apron, a long coat loosely tied above her bump. She prayed no one would notice, that she could serve drinks, take her tips, and disappear. But fate had other plans. When she stepped onto the rooftop, her heart stopped. Across the room, beneath golden string lights and soft jazz, stood Julian. His profile caught the light in that cruel, beautiful way she remembered. Next to him, Talia, hand resting on a perfectly flat stomach, dressed in ivory satin like a woman waiting to be worshipped. Celeste froze. She couldn't breathe. Her tray shook in her hands. And in that moment, Julian turned. Their eyes locked. Julian's world stopped turning. He crossed the floor without a word. "Celeste?" he said, voice raw, disbelief bleeding through every syllable. She wanted to run. Her legs refused. The tray slipped from her hands, glass shattered on marble, laughter, music, all faded to silence. Julian's eyes dropped to her stomach. So close now, there was no hiding. "Is it mine?" he whispered. She didn't speak, just nodded. And in that one small motion, Julian's entire world came crashing down. Celeste swayed, her vision blurred. She heard his voice, far, muffled, then darkness. When she woke, she was in a hospital bed. White lights. The sterile scent of bleach. A soft beep echoing steady in the room. Julian sat beside her, holding her hand, his eyes red with sleepless worry. Celeste turned away. "I wasn't going to tell you," she murmured, "because pity is the cruelest version of love. And I wanted to remember ours without that." Julian leaned forward, voice cracking. "I was wrong. I didn't give you a chance. I didn't give us a chance." Julian sat beside her, holding her hand like an anchor. Her breathing was steady, but his heart raced. The doctor stepped in. "She's 30 weeks along. Both mother and baby are stable, but she needs rest." 30 weeks. Julian's breath caught. That night, the first time they argued about children, was just over 7 months ago. That was before the envelope, before the lies. The door opened. Talia walked in, composed as ever. "She's all right?" she asked. Julian didn't answer. His eyes didn't leave hers. "She's 18 weeks pregnant," he said flatly. Talia's gaze faltered. Julian stepped forward. "And you? How far along are you, Talia?" She hesitated. "We said around 12 weeks. I don't know exactly. My next appointment is soon." "You don't know?" he asked. "Why haven't I been to a single appointment? Why haven't I seen a scan? No paperwork, no ultrasound." Silence. Julian looked down. Her stomach, it matches 30 weeks. Yours doesn't match anything. Talia's face went pale. "Julian, I didn't want to lose you. I was scared you'd go back to her." "So you lied," he said, voice breaking. "You looked me in the eye, night after night, and built a life on fiction? You let me hold on to a future that never existed?" Talia reached out, but he stepped back. He turned to Celeste. Peaceful, fragile, real. And for the first time, Julia knew exactly what truth felt like. Celeste awoke to the sterile light of the hospital creeping through the curtains. The scent of disinfectant clung to the air, cold and impersonal. Her body ached. Her bones felt heavy, but it was her heart that felt the most distant from life. When she turned her head slightly and saw Julian sitting there, unmoving, hands clenched together, eyes hollow from sleeplessness, she realized there were still deeper shades of pain she hadn't known until now. She turned her face away. Her voice came out hoarse and cracked. "You don't have to be here." "Celeste," he whispered, "I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I didn't believe you." She stared out the window. "You didn't just not believe me, Julian. You left me. You let me go when I was at my weakest. If one photo could make you walk away, then your love was never strong enough to stay." He bowed his head, knuckles white from pressure. "I was wrong, but I can't let it end like this. I'll find the truth. I'll prove it to you." She said nothing. No forgiveness, but no rejection either. That silence was the only thread of hope he clung to when he left the hospital. 2 days later, Julian walked into the office of Damien Frost, a name Talia had once spoken with calculated casualness. The office was quiet, cold. The hum of a ticking clock echoed in the hall. Julian didn't waste time. "Who hired you to investigate Celeste?" Damien raised an eyebrow, then calmly slid a file across the desk. "Talia Brennan. She prepaid $5,000, asked me to confirm whether Celeste was cheating." Julian opened the file, hands trembling. The photo, Celeste hugging Elias, her cousin, was harmless in its original form, warm, familial. The edited version was tighter, darker, suggestive. A lie crafted with intent. She wanted me to enhance intimacy. I refused. What came next? She did herself. She sent it from an anonymous email. One line, "You deserve the truth." Damien paused. I've seen lies, but this one? This one was designed to steal a man. Julian left the building with a storm inside him, not loud, not violent, but cold and decisive. Betrayal in silence. That night, he walked into the apartment he once thought of as a second chance. Talia sat on the couch reading, serene in her silk nightgown. Her body still bore no sign of pregnancy. "Talia," he said, "I spoke to Damien Frost." She froze. Her book paused mid-page. Why? He placed 2 photos on the coffee table, before and after. "I know," Julian said. "You created this. The baby, the photo, even that night, all of it." Talia didn't deny it, her voice barely a whisper. "I was scared. I knew you never truly loved me, but I thought, if we had a child, maybe you'd stay." "You lose me," Julian said, softly, "the moment you chose to deceive me." She said nothing, just stood still as he walked away. The door closed behind him without a sound, but the silence between them shattered. A light rain fell. Julian stood in front of Celeste's small apartment. The glow from her window cast a warm light onto the damp pavement. He didn't go in. He just stood there, holding a freshly printed ultrasound from the hospital. It was his child, without a doubt. He knew no apology could ever be enough. No action could erase the past. But he would start with silence, with patience, with simply staying, truly staying. And if she was ever willing, one day he would be there, ready to love her all over again. Julian started therapy. Not because anyone told him to, not for image, reputation, or performative guilt, but because for the first time in his life, he realized he needed to relearn how to be a decent man from the roots up. Every Wednesday morning, he sat in a pale gray room across from an old psychologist, talking about his parents, his childhood, about what it meant to be strong, to the point of forgetting how to listen to your own heart. Every Friday afternoon, he showed up at prenatal classes. The only man in a room full of mothers-to-be. He quietly learned how to swaddle a baby, how to support through contractions, how to be useful instead of afraid. No one knew his name. He liked it that way. There, he was just a father trying to start over. He also began covering Celeste's medical expenses, hospital bills, prenatal vitamins, ultrasounds, transport, everything paid under the label Anonymous Community Sponsor. She never knew who was behind it, but sometimes she stared at the paid in full line on her receipts a little longer than usual. And then, one day, though it was hard to say when exactly, Celeste started replying to his messages, short at first, but not cold. When he asked, "Did you eat today?" she answered, "Yes, thanks." When he sent her a book about newborn care, she replied, "It's good, I'm reading it." When he stood quietly in the hallway outside her clinic and greeted her with nothing but a glance, she didn't look away. And like that, step by step, she let him come back into her life, not through apologies, but through quiet, patient presence that asked for nothing, except the chance to be there. Then the day arrived. A bitterly cold night in Chicago. The wind sliced like glass. Celeste doubled over in pain, clutching her belly on the porch steps. And as if summoned by instinct, Julian was there, opening the car door without a word. He held her carefully, drove fast, said nothing. But he didn't leave. He waited in the hallway for 11 straight hours, no sleep, no food, just pacing, praying, and standing every time a doctor passed by. At last, a cry broke through. A baby girl, 2.9 kilograms, slanted eyes like her mother, but the forehead and nose unmistakably his. Celeste drifted off from exhaustion. When she woke, she saw Julian holding the baby, arms gentle and still, like he feared breaking something sacred. He didn't say a word, just stared at her, his eyes full of something she had never seen in him before, a quiet, reverent gratitude. "What did you name her?" he asked softly. Celeste looked at the baby, then at him. "Leora," she whispered. "It means light." Julian nodded. "It fits. She is." In the days that followed, he stayed. He cooked, cleaned, made bottles, asked for nothing, demanded nothing. He simply existed beside them, like someone relearning love through service. Celeste saw it all, said little, but she began to smile more, sleep deeper, believe in tomorrow again. One early spring afternoon, with the last snow melted, Celeste took Leora to the park. Julian walked quietly beside them. She paused, turned to him. "You've changed," she said. "Not for me, for you." Julian looked at her, eyes soft. "I just want to be the kind of man our daughter could be proud of." She nodded, a small smile, hesitant, but no longer cold, like a door slightly opening. As Leora laughed in the sunlight, tiny fingers gripping Julian's hand, Celeste knew, all wounds, given enough love and time, could be mended. And love sometimes begins again, on a day just like this. This new life didn't arrive like a warm breeze in summer. It came slowly, deliberately, through patience, through quiet tears, through long nights of exhaustion and baby cries. But inside that fatigue, something tender began to grow. Not a return to what was, but the birth of something different. Celeste and Julian didn't go back to how they were. They didn't pretend the hurt never happened. They shared the same small home, rebuilt their trust with new language, truths, small gestures, moments of vulnerability that once would have been buried in silence. Julie restored Celeste's old studio, painted the walls, replaced every lost brush, every bottle of paint. He found unfinished canvases and hung them again, like calling her back to herself. He helped her reopen art classes for neighborhood children, fundraised for a mural project across the city. Gray walls now bloomed with color, with stories, with hope. Celeste began regaining her reputation, but more importantly, she rediscovered her purpose. She no longer painted for applause. She painted because she believed again in the beauty she could give. Julian, in turn, became a father neither he nor anyone else had expected. He learned to swaddle, to soothe, to read bedtime stories in such ridiculous voices that Celeste laughed out loud every night. He was no longer the high-powered CEO chasing milestones. He was a man learning how to slow down, for things no metric could ever measure. One late summer afternoon, the three of them picnicked in the park. Celeste spread a checkered blanket. Julian sliced fruit. Baby Leora, now toddling at 1 year old, wobbled on the grass with a green pinwheel in hand. Sunlight brushed her cheeks, making her eyes gleam like little crystals. Celeste watched them, a quiet lightness in her chest. At one point, she turned to Julian and whispered softly, as if saying it too loud might scare the moment away. "Love didn't save us, we saved it." Julian met her gaze. His eyes held no pride, no guilt, only certainty. Quiet, steady. "And I'll keep choosing it. Every day." In the distance, Leora tripped and tumbled onto the grass, giggling. They both leapt to catch her, and in the sunlight the three of them became a single, shining thing. And love, no longer a dream, was something they had held on to. Together, and love, no longer a dream, was something they had held on to, together, because this time they chose it.